Stop. Put down the 10-page history of your elf kingdom. Put down the economic flowchart of your dwarven mining trade. You're about to build your Daggerheart campaign all wrong. Because here's the thing, the best stories don't come from a GM's encyclopedia. They come from characters, from their messy beginnings, their losses, their triumphs. And if you try to build the world all by yourself, you're not writing a living story, you're just writing a novel your players didn't buy tickets for. And that's why Daggerheart fixes world building in a way D&D and other systems never did. It doesn't let you make the mistake of going solo. It hands the brush to everyone at the table. And if you do it right, your players will care more about your world than you ever thought possible. The GM world building trap. We've all done it. You get an idea for a campaign, you spend weeks designing nations, gods, villains, and trade routes. Maybe you even invent a new calendar system because months named after real things just aren't fantasy enough. And then, session 1 comes around. You sit down, you're vibrating with excitement to show your world to your friends. And the first thing they do? They go to a tavern. They don't ask about your wars. They don't care about your economic systems. They just want to know if the bartender sells beer, and if they can seduce him for a discount. That's the trap of traditional world building. The GM builds a masterpiece in their head, but the players didn't build it with you, so they don't have a reason to care. And worse, you burn yourself out trying to carry the weight of the whole world on your back. You become the unpaid author of a lore bible nobody reads. How Daggerheart flips the script. Daggerheart looks at the old school approach and said, what if world building isn't a solo job? What if it's the point of the game? And that's exactly what it gives you. From the very first session, the rules push you to share the load. The game gives you 3 huge world building engines. Session 0, the real structure. Not just make characters, you talk tone, themes, what you want from the campaign. Ancestries and communities. Your character's heritage builds the cultures, values, and conflicts of the setting. Campaign frames. They're blueprints for collaborative worlds that you bend and reshape with your group. Instead of one person trying to be Tolkien in their basement, you've got a room full of co-authors, and suddenly the world feels alive because everybody's put their fingerprints on it. Session 0, building together. Let's start with Session 0, because this is where Daggerheart shines. Other games might tell you, hey, have a Session 0 if you want. Daggerheart bakes it in. The book literally hands you the CATS method. Concept, aim, tone, subject. It's like the world building 4 horsemen, but friendly. Concept. You pitch what the campaign is, not a lore dump, a hook, like treasure hunters seeking the 5 elemental shards, or childhood friends uncover a secret that could save the world or destroy it. This is hype, not homework. Aim. What do you want out of this game? Weekly epic, from level 1 to 10, or just hang out, chatting, and killing monsters? This keeps expectations straight. Tone. Gritty, funny, romantic, dramatic. You literally make a list of tones, and circle the ones everyone wants. Boom. Instant alignment of vibes. Subject, the hard part. What topics are welcome? What are the lines you won't cross? Daggerheart gives you tools like lines and veils, and the X card to make sure everyone feels safe and engaged. You do all this before the world even exists. And already your players are co-creating the emotional DNA for your campaign. Then you move into questions, and this is where the magic happens. Instead of you telling players what the world is like, you ask them, how do people think about gender in this world? Should the kingdom be monarchies or something else? If the elves live in hives, do you mean biologically or socially? Every answer adds a new piece to the map, not from you, from them. And now they're invested. Ancestries and communities. These aren't just stats, they're world-building devices. When someone picks a clank, suddenly the world has constructs. Do people see them as holy, dangerous, or slaves? That choice creates culture. When someone picks Infernus, you've just decided whether this world knows about the circles below. How do communities treat fire-blooded wanderers? Prejudice? Reverence? Boom. Instant drama. Communities do the same thing. They're not just hometown flavour. They generate factions, values, and conflicts. Loreborn gives you theology debates. They literally ask, what were you taught about the origins of the mortal realm? And if you're using Colossus of the Drylands, how did the Colossi emerging affect that worldview? That's a sermon and a conflict in one. Orderborn force you to define codes, laws, and corruption. When a player says, I'll never harm a child, now the world has rules outlaws break. Wanderborn define the frontier. Prospectors, caches in the desert, old maps with half-burned trails. Slyborn. They're saboteurs, snake oil sellers, revolutionaries. Whatever they pick, your world suddenly has secret societies and sabotage. You're not writing cultures in advance, you're letting players' choices invent them for you. Campaign frames, the blueprint. This is where it all clicks. A frame is like scaffolding. It gives you tone, themes, and a core story, but leaves it full of holes for your group to fill in. Take Colossus of the Drylands as an example. The frame says, the world is shattered by Colossus gods, beasts, communities fight to survive in their shadows. That's the pitch. But the real power of the frame is the questions it asks. Do your characters believe in the Colossi as divine punishment or just natural disasters? What did they personally lose when the giants rose? Which community thrives under their shadow and which collapses? The frame gives you a spine, but the players put on the muscle. You can do the same with any frame in the book, or even remix your own, and suddenly instead of writing a 100-page lore bible, you're giving your table a blueprint they'll love because they helped build it. Using environments. World building isn't just maps and history, it's the way the world itself pushes back on the characters. And this is where Daggerheart quietly hides one of its best tools, environments. See, in most ttrpgs, if you throw your party at a crumbling ruin or a flooded cavern, you're basically making it up on the fly. Maybe you've got a DC in mind, maybe you don't. But in Daggerheart, the book hands you environment stat blocks, blueprints that give shape to the dangers, tensions, and even NPC forces in a scene. These aren't just for combat. An environment can be a raging river, sweeping characters downstream, a bustling marketplace full of pickpockets and temptation, or even an imperial court where politics and whispers are the real weapons. Each comes with its own impulses. What the environment wants. A river might want to drag you under, a marketplace might want to distract and tempt you, a haunted city might want you to get lost in its bones. Difficulty, which is the baseline for action rolls against it. Features, the moves that the GM can pull just like adversaries, vines restrain, crowds that separate, undertows that drag. You've got adversary ties, built-in suggestions for who or what shows up in these places. What this means is that instead of you sitting there thinking, I guess the cliff is hard to climb, roll athletics, you have a scene engine ready to go. You're not inventing tension out of thin air. The environment is the tension. And here's the best part, environments come with questions, like in the raging river. What trinkets lie at the bottom of the riverbed? Do predators swim these waters? These are prompts to make the scene yours and tie it back to your story. Maybe the river carries away the locket of a fallen NPC. Maybe a glass snake lurks beneath, waiting for prey. Environments are the unsung backbone of collaborative world building. They give your players something to fight, to navigate, or to negotiate with. But they also remind you, the GM, that the world is alive. It's not just the villains pulling strings, it's the storm, the marketplace, the grove, the battlefield. And here's the kicker. You can reskin them instantly. The Imperial Court becomes the Queen's birthday feast. The raging river becomes a lava flow in the mountains. The abandoned grove becomes a desecrated shrine your player's backstory hinted at. You don't need to write new subsystems or balance encounter math. You've already got the blueprint. So when you're world building in Daggerheart, don't just think nations, maps, and histories. Think environments. Because these blueprints let you drop your players into living, breathing moments with zero prep and maximum drama. Stories are about characters, not worlds. Here's the truth. Nobody remembers Lord of the Rings because Tolkien explained Hobbit agriculture in detail. They remember it because Sam carried Frodo up Mount Doom. Nobody remembers Star Wars because of the galactic trade law. They remember Luke staring at the twin suns, deciding he's ready to grow up. Stories are about characters changing inside the world. And Daggerheart makes the world bend around those characters from the very start. When you do this right, your players don't just visit your setting, they own it. Every NPC, every town, every faction is connected to the answers they give you in session 0. And that's why they'll care when the world is threatened. Why this works. Let's be honest, GMs burn out. You try to do it all yourself, you run out of steam, and the worst part? Even if you build a masterpiece, players might still ignore it. Collaborative world building solves both problems. You're not carrying the whole load. Your players help build the scaffolding. Players have instant buy-ins. They're invested because it's their town that's burning, their cult that's rising, their lost artifact that's at stake. You get surprises too. When a player says, "My community betrayed me," suddenly you've got a subplot you never would have invented. Instead of a one-way lore dump, it's a feedback loop. Everyone contributes, everyone cares, and the world feels more alive than anything you could have built alone. So here's the payoff. If you're world building alone, your campaign will always feel like your story. But if you world build with your players, it becomes their story, and that's the story they'll remember. Daggerheart doesn't just make this possible, it makes it easy. Session 0 gives you the tools, Ancestry and communities give you the culture, and campaign frames give you the blueprints. All you have to do is stop writing novels and start asking questions. You're well building Daggerheart all wrong if you think it's about you writing a masterpiece and hoping your players care. The real masterpiece is what you build together. It's messy, unpredictable, and more alive than anything you could script alone. And that's why Daggerheart is the cure for GM burnout, because it teaches you the one thing other games never did. The world doesn't belong to the GM, it belongs to the table. Hit subscribe and let's keep shaping better worlds together. Stay spicy, adventurers.